On this episode of Buick, watch as I peel back more layers of sadness. Let's compare and contrast. Yay! Boo. I think the trick with this one is I just don't look far ahead. So I just kind of look ahead of where I'm going and I stop looking at a convenient place to stop. And I just pretend like everything past this line doesn't exist. And that's the only way I can do this. Yeah, this isn't all getting done by the books here. But that said, let's look at some more horrible things. We got a really thick rubber mat that, let's give it credit. It stood the test of time. We have some plywood, which we're going to assume that this isn't original. We've got rot, and we got some nice little holes in there. And we've got rust, and we've got stuff that tickles your throat. And we've got some rusty metal here. We've got an upper piece that looks like it's got a chunk of leather or some kind of crap sewn to it that's insulating the firewall. But I think for right now, I'm looking at this guy. And the reason I'm looking at this guy is that this has to be changed, and three things that have to happen. So this has to come off here. This has to come off. Might be able to slip it around there, not sure yet. And this has to come off. And this is one of those exciting things to take off because it's very complicated and delicate. It's going to be very sensitive as far as getting this door gap good. So I guess for my own notes here, we got a pretty nice gap. Wouldn't call it perfect, but we have not such a great gap. It looks like that door's pitched down a little bit. I gotta think about that, what that means in this case, but that tends to make you think it's more back here. I do know that this door is tweaked, so if I close it all the way, that hinge right there, does that. So I'm gonna probably blame that on that right now and pretend that there's no part of back here that needs attention, but everything looks pretty good back there. It still could be dipped. I'm not going to try to kid myself, but some compromises are going to have to be made, but we'll make it work. I was taking some of this upholstery trim off and trying to document it as I went along, and I just got to look at this build quality again here. And it's dismal. None of these brackets are screwed in here. And there's not even holes for them, which raises an awful lot of questions. None of which I don't think we're going to easily solve. One of the things I guess I did discover was that, when I was patching those back pieces over there, that one was 3 pieces, and then I checked another one I had, and it was only 2 pieces, so it's kind of lending more credibility to the thought that this stuff is just thrown together on the fly. I talked with Byron and Merle about this. Merle said that maybe it was like a rework car. Like they put it together on the line, they didn't get things quite right, and they just moved it into like rework, and it just got botched back together. I guess I could see something like that being the case. Can't imagine this was a production type of a thing here. The car got the raw end of the deal on the leak, and something with this top was just never right, and it looks like it was just always plaguing the car, and it was always leaking, and it's just, I'm sure whatever it is with these brackets wasn't helping matters at all, because if that thing was shifting around, assuming that that's original, which I don't even know because the parts aren't even the same from car to car. Like, that looks pretty original to me, but I just simply don't know. Getting it to good enough is basically the way they had it, and I think there's just a few pieces I'm going to try to like overbuild that they didn't, and it's probably going to be up in this corner here. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I am going to try to come up with some wizardry to make that better than it was. But again, I mean, this car's days of getting drenched should be over. It'll still get wet, it'll still get use and get rained on, but it's just not gonna be in any kind of predicament where it's continually taking on water and sitting in water. It's gonna be living in the garage. So I'm not gonna go nuts worrying about, oh my god, if some water gets in, it's gonna cause corrosion. I mean, it'll always be able to be taken apart and repaired, and I just highly doubt I'm the last person that's ever gonna have to dig into here and screw with things. The poor neck sap is really going to have a hell of a time figuring out what's going on here, 70 years down the road, if this is still a thing. They're never going to be able to piece the story together. I guess unless they watch this video, that's still around at that point. But yeah, hey, future guy, you're screwed. I can promise you, even if that one's bad, it's not bad. Look at it, it's just folded over around wood. I mean, forget it. Forget it. I like this here too. Like, it's a wire that's soldered onto the body. I guess it would have been for the dome lights. I mean, they made quite a big deal out of that, huh? Why didn't they just take it from right there? I guess one of the things that makes me a little bit suspicious here is that, or I should say, I guess one of the things that kind of supports my theory is that, like, nuts wouldn't really go on those things at all. There was just, on each one of the brackets on the side part, there was one nut on each one. And the nut wasn't even on. It was just on like a thread up until it got to where the jimmy was. And then that was it. So, and again, like, these are jimmied from, like, I wonder if this is like where the fuck up began. I think that, like, if these stupid things got pushed through and the guy couldn't squish them down, he couldn't squish a nut down on them, and he just threw in the towel, like, everything went downhill from there, maybe. I don't know, but I just think it's weird that, like, those brackets on both sides, like, they were in there just enough to say they were there on the vertical side, but then up on the horizontal side, they're just kind of, there's not even holes for them. So I don't know. I'll be on the lookout for a recall notice, though. I cut a bunch of strips up. And I think what I'm going to do here is make like a gauge that fits in here. Do something like that. Copy these marks over to those boards and just make like a piece of lattice work that fits into here. And I'll be able to use that for a template after I go to reassemble this and everything shifts. I think it'll help me get it back into alignment. Take a quick look here. So the door gaps are good, right? I'm not 100% sure how. What I do believe it happened is that like the body as a whole may have sunk, and this doesn't move because this is mounted to the piece that this is mounted separately from these guys, so this kind of doesn't really support anything. It just kind of does whatever, where this has weight on it. So I think what happened is all of this came down a little bit, and the only reason you can't see it now, but the door was brushing on the rocker panel a little bit. So I think you know, the only dimension that I really want to change out of any of this is I want to increase the gap between the door and the rocker panel. If I could just put all this back together and have all my door gaps the same, I'd be completely happy, even though they weren't 100%. You know, what's 100% here? So that's what I'm aiming for. If I can just get this back to where it was. There was a thing in here I took out, a plate. And I think I finally dug down to solid material. I think once we get this out here, that we're back into, I'm hoping that the wood, the structure underneath this wood, there's like 2 layers. I'm hoping the one underneath is good. I'm banking on the one underneath being good. This is not going to be a museum car, ever. I'm questioning whether it was even a good car to start with, or if it might have been somewhat of a lemon because of some of the botched jobs that seem to be original. We'll turn it back into a car again, and it'll be fine, and things might need to get replaced again down the road at some point, or fixed, or shimmed, or spaced, or whatever, but, you know, it's an old car, it's part of it. If you want a new car, you go buy one, right? I had been prepping to change this, but I think I'm going to wait till I get this off before I make that decision, because I don't know if it's going to really matter, and I think I can beef it up, like maybe right here, and it'll be good enough, and just fix the holes, stabilize the wood, maybe get a little bit of glue in there and clamp it. But I just don't know if it's going to buy me anything. It doesn't really seem to be that bad, other than a few spots that I think I can sturdy it up. And I've got a lot that really does need it, so well, maybe in the future it needs it, but it's all mounted to the body. And I just don't think it's bad enough to warrant it. I think once, a lot of the stuff, once I got the stabilizer in it, the outside is as hard as a rock, and I have sanded down into it to see if it was just the surface, and that wood hardener seems to penetrate pretty deep, so I just am starting to think it's going to be the wrong decision to play with that. I've got a lot of concerns, mostly due to this, right? So if that wasn't bad, I would have more faith in changing this, and I think I would rather have this hang in there, and then maybe at the end, if I decide that it has to happen, I'll change it at the end after I've repaired the top. But I think in order to change that the right way, you want to push up on the top with some support, but there's nothing on the top to really, the top's going to fall apart if I start pushing on it. So either this isn't the right time to do it, or it doesn't really need to be done. And I can't push a screwdriver through anywhere but right here. And I think I can, once I take this pillar out, I think I can strengthen that up pretty good. Even if I have to route it out and put a piece in there or throw another piece on top, I think it'll be okay. Alright, I made these gauges so I can adjust the body after I take the wood out and at least get it back to where it was. And then what I did was, since this is going to have to come off and get changed, I did a secondary measurement here with this shim, spacing it out, and I'm kind of guesstimating that that's in the ballpark of where it's going to come up to, but I don't know, that doesn't matter that much, but I'm kind of hoping I can make them work for the other side, but I don't think that they will because of the angles. Maybe I can kind of modify and adapt a little bit, but so those just go aside now. If nothing else, at least if I fail, it'll give the vines a nice place to attach themselves to, right? We picked up some ash for Rob's Uncle Eddie. I don't even know the guy, and he's costing me money. But what did Uncle Eddie tell us about?
Uncle Eddie said, "Don't use oak." What happens?
Why don't we use oak?
Oak, put in cars.
Okay.
It rusts steel.
It rusts steel because of the tannins and the acidity of oak.
What I didn't tell you before you bought this, and I probably should have told you, Uncle Eddie also said, and he was pretty brief, but he said pine is okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I think that it might have saved you a little bit.
Yeah, this was only like $90, but it's almost not garbage. When you look at it.
It's labor of love.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually like, if you want, some of the crown that I need is probably right in that board.
That's a beautiful board.
It really is if it wasn't twisted. In reality, though, like, I was looking at poplar. Poplar wasn't a lot cheaper.
Oh, interesting.
This was only $6 a board foot. I just figured to show a few more things before I wrap it up for this one. This goes into the right fender, or I should say this goes into the lower part of the cowl section. So 45 degrees floorboard connects to that recess right there. So I'm gonna have to make one of them. That I'm not worried about on any level. These bags are really cheap these days too, by the way. They work really good for keeping your crap organized. Over here, guess let's get a stand backish kind of view here. So while the rocker panel's off, obviously there's stuff behind it I want to do and fix. And oh, the phone is ringing. Hello?
What's going on, bud?
Talking to you. What are you doing?
Oh, sorry I didn't call you last night. I was trying to, and we got a birthday party.
Oh, whose birthday were you partying? I cut 2 rivets off that. Just quick zip, couple sparks. It's been going for a while now. So if you got any of this in your car, get it out. I finished cleaning my panel. And that's still on fire out there. So as I was saying, I looked at the brakes. This is gonna need a new bushing. I think it's a McMaster car kind of thing. I got this ground down in here. It still needs some touch up, but now we can kind of get into this right here. I wanted to grind it first so I know where the not terrible metal starts. You could almost picture doing something like this. I'm going to look into leading, learning how to lead some of this, because there's some pitting I'd like to fix, but I think for now, I'm really going to try to focus on making this, which again, you know, is supposed to look like that. So, obviously there's some wood back there that needs to get fixed. I do have a template started here. Well, I guess this would be the, yeah, this would be the C-pillar. There's my hinge marks, and there's the dog leg. Dog leg, C-pillar, call it what you will. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. You know, I only need to right here, but I made this whole thing long because I wanted alignment. You know, both for trying to make it and for assembling it. I got to figure out how I'm going to punch one of those things out, because when you look in here, the rocker panel comes down. The rocker panel is still under construction, but like, so right here, you can see where this just kind of comes down, and it's just going to return straight into here. It tucks all the way back up behind here. So if anyone's got any ideas about how to do that, I think at some point I'm just going to take something and start hammering on it until it folds into the shape I want it to be in. If I don't come up with a better idea. I still have obviously more cleaning up to do right here, but I had some bad settings and I kept blowing through on the weld, so I got to fix that too. But the rest of it is pretty good. Find some pits under there I got to deal with. Put some of that evapor rust on it, and yeah, I don't know. I didn't really do a lot. I think the good old-fashioned way works a lot better. Seems like it's a little bit far in right there in the back, but there's still plenty of time for adjustment. But yeah, that's the piece I have to make for right there, and then I got to bring it around the corner and come up somewhere in here. I don't want to get too crazy with it. It's just a rescue. But yeah, it looks nice, huh? Nice to see something like that. So I guess another thing before I wrap this one up, I was chatting with someone in the comments, Fuin Sachs. He said that he dowels 90 degrees from the hole. And I had never thought of that, but I actually ended up using that here. And the reason why, well, I think there's a few reasons, right? Like you've got a hole and then you go jamming something in there and you run the risk of splitting the wood. Whereas if you come in from the side, you're going to kind of help hold the wood together. And in this case, I had cracks on all these holes. So I went in and I doweled them at an angle from the side, and I filled it up with wood glue, and I took my drill bit shavings and I crammed them in the hole after the dowel was seated. So thank you for that. That ended up working out really good, and I feel like now the wood is pinned across the board, so this shouldn't go anywhere. This should have gone as far as it's going to go now. And I did the same thing up here. Kind of a feeling of comfort knowing that I was helping the wood in more than one way. And I'm still poking away up in here, but yeah, there's going to be more to come. But I got to wrap this up because this just keeps going and going, and I'm doing a lot of stuff while I have this thing open. So sorry if there's not a ton of gratification in this one, but it's coming along. So we'll see you on the next one.